Welcome back. The Conservatives were buoyant as they rolled up their fluorescent blue party conference carpet, united by Kemi Badenoch's shock pledge to scrap stamp duty in England. And within hours came the bombshell from Sharm el-Sheikh, a peace deal in Gaza. There's plenty to discuss with their shadow Foreign Secretary. Dame Priti Patel joined me earlier. Priti Patel, do you believe that we are close to what Mr. Trump calls everlasting peace in the Middle East?
Well, look, Trevor, I very much hope so. And this is a real turning point. This is a major, major milestone now in terms of the negotiations and the prospect of peace. I think we have to be quite calibrated about this. We've got to wait and see what happens. This is only the first stage. And I remember being on your programme, I think in January this year, when we saw hostages being released that Sunday morning. We know hostages are going to be released tomorrow. I think this is going to be very emotional. It's going to be a very difficult few days. We're going to see some really hard and traumatic images. But I think first and foremost, we want to see peace, security, and some hope. And this is really important. The region has been drained of all hope. It's been dominated by hatred. And I think first and foremost, all credit to all the key players, including the United States, obviously President Trump, Egypt in particular, in the way in which they've been able to really, bring together various elements to basically say enough is enough. We need to turn to a new chapter and look forward to building a much more sustainable future for Gaza.
One thing that's striking here is the attitude towards the President of the United States. Everybody seems to be saying this could not have been done without Mr. Trump and his ways of doing things.
So I do actually agree with an element of that. He has been very clear. He doesn't want to see sustained wars, rightly so. We've seen such appalling humanitarian crises this year. We've had all the issues around aid, brutality, Hamas constantly using people as a human shield, the whole situation with the hostages who've been kept in captivity, brutal captivity for over 700 days. That's just not sustainable. And so finding solutions, this is all about finding solutions, which to the credit of President Trump and his team, they've been driving this.
You're closer to that team than most. What do you think they brought to this task that Obama, Biden or Trump #1 didn't?
Political will. I think it's all been about political will. It's been too easy for political leaders to just concede to public opinion like Keir Starmer has done, or in his case, his backbenchers. But fundamentally, it's a political will to say enough is enough. Let's convene, let's find solutions, let's bring regional leaders to the table. This isn't the first time. This is another time this year that regional leaders have been brought together in Egypt. We saw this with the Cairo process in May earlier on this year, where even the region said that they would start to look at reconstruction and rebuilding. That actually triggered even the likes of the World Bank to come together to look at future plans. That is political will. And by the way, that's what leadership is about. And being the leader of the free world, a major country, I think he has had all the real clarity and vision to really convene and bring people together. And he's done that.
Let's talk about our role. In the next phase, should British troops be involved in the peacekeeping if we're asked?
Well, I don't think we're at that stage, first of all. I think let's be very clear about this. This is now phase by phase. First of all, we've got to ensure that the hostages are released. We need to see that Hamas are true to their word. Now, Hamas are a terrorist organisation. They've got to put down their arms. That in its own right is going to be complicated in terms of putting down weapons and all those essential components. In terms of
Do you trust them?
Peace and stabilisation, look, I'm observing this from the outside. They're a terrorist organisation that I prescribed. They're prescribed for very good reasons. They're going to have to step up. And I suspect the Qataris are going to be involved in making sure Hamas are good to their word and that it's sustained, that there are no reprisals inside Gaza. This is not straightforward.
Okay.
You've asked about other things such as peacekeeping. We've got to look at what the plans are going to be going forward.
Right.
And that's going to be really important. There's a lot of detail that we don't know of yet.
China. Should the government have designated China a threat?
Well, of course they should have. And I was part of a government and I was Home Secretary for over 3 years where China was a threat. They were an adversary. We put forward lots of legislation involving our national security, acts of parliament, stopping China and Chinese firms from buying and acquiring British companies because we knew that China was an adversary, a real threat to us. I saw that obviously in ways in which I can't disclose now. I saw that through classified information. Our agencies, our intelligence and security agencies were saying that throughout and have been saying that consistently.
Do you want us to stop engaging with China economically?
So there is always going to be an economic relationship with China. We know that. The British public consume goods made in China. That is one thing. What we don't like and what we fundamentally are calling out is the fact that there is a spy case involving individuals that were effectively going to be prosecuted through the courts. And we've had government interference in that case. That case collapsed effectively because the government did not give the Crown Prosecution Service the evidence about China being a threat to our national security. And that is fundamentally political interference in a judicial process.
Your colleagues have pointed the finger at the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell. The Education Secretary told me this morning that he had nothing to do with it.
That's a very bold statement from the Education Secretary, it really is. The National Security Advisor, as we know, is a political advisor. However, we have read from newspapers there are plenty of disclosures about various meetings that he was involved in, including with other senior civil servants, the Permanent Secretary of the Foreign Office, basically trying to rewrite the narrative around China, saying that they're not a threat, they're a challenge, and that there were meetings basically within government not to provide critical information that should have been provided to the Crown Prosecution Service to enable that trial to proceed.
Just very quickly, Prime Minister's been in India this week. Mr. Modi buys Russia's oil, calls Vladimir Putin a friend, send him a birthday card. Is that really the sort of company we need to be hanging out with?
Well, look, our views are very clear about anyone that is white labelling and washing through Russian oil. You know, we believe that greater sanctions should be undertaken. We've been crystal clear about that from the outset. India and Russia have their own long-term historic relationship. But India and the United Kingdom have a very different relationship. You know, I'm one of the just under 2 million representatives of the Indian diaspora. We have a living bridge between the United Kingdom and India. So fundamentally, we have a long-standing relationship and that will always continue. But we must call out even our allies, even those that we work with, when it comes to supporting Putin's Russia.
Priti Patel, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Trevor.